I thought it was just a quick ride home after a long shift. I didn't expect my boss to take a detour that would change the course of my life in a 10-minute conversation. By the time he finished his offer, the dashboard lights blurred, and I realized the wetness on my face wasn't from the rain. Before I begin, tell me in the comments which city you're watching from. Chicago, Phoenix, Jacksonville, small towns I've never heard of. I love seeing where we're all listening from. It was one of those evenings when parking lot lights look like moons on metal. Our building sits behind a row of maples, their leaves already the color of penny copper, and the wind had done what wind does. It rearranged the day and left the ground littered with it. I was rubbing the ache at the base of my neck when Ryan rolled his window down and called my name. He had the easy friendliness of someone who never assumes he's the main character of the scene, just a careful driver asking a coworker if she's okay. He didn't say coworker, though. He said Laura, like a person, like that mattered. "Your car still in the shop?" he asked. I laughed because it beat crying. The truth was, the car wasn't in the shop. The car was at my apartment, where it sat with a stubborn check engine light I kept promising I'd handle next payday. The bus saved me gas money and removed the decision to stop at the store on the way home for things we could live without. So yes, I said, the car's still in the shop, and hoped my voice didn't sound as thin as it felt. "Hop in. I'm heading past your neighborhood." The heater in his truck started pushing warm air before I had my seatbelt on. It smelled like pine, one of those little trees swinging from the mirror, and something faintly sweet, like the coffee he nurses all day. He drives like he does everything. Alert, patient, with those steady hands that look as if they remember the weight of real work. The wipers kept time on the windshield. We didn't say much at first. In our building, silence after 5 p.m. is its own kindness. I've worked for the company 11 years. I'm 47, which is a kind of middle distance. You can see youth behind you and something you hope is wisdom ahead. I'm also a daughter, which at my age means practical things. Pill organizers and rides to appointments, a freezer full of soups with masking tape dates, and insurance letters that don't sound like English unless you're a lawyer. My mother used to outwalk friends in the mall. Now her knees call the shots. I don't say that for sympathy. A lot of you know it firsthand. Life doesn't ask if you're ready to be the strong one. It just hands you the baton. The rain turned soft, the way it does when it's run out of anger. Headlights smeared across the slick road, and the city looked shy, as if she were taking off her jewelry. We passed the corner where the bus drops me, that tiny kingdom of wet benches and posters for events that already happened. I felt Ryan glance at me, not in a nosy way, more like he was checking if I wanted the radio louder. He's not the kind to fill silence with noise. I've always respected that. "You did a lot today," he said. "Eyes on the road." Warehouse called twice about that rush order. Client in Cincinnati was ready to hunt someone down. You kept them calm. I shrugged. That's the job. You do it better than most. Another beat of wipers. Better than me on some days. Compliments from a boss can be like balloons. You're not sure if they'll drift away. I smiled anyway. "Well, I've got the mom voice," I said. "Even when no one listening is my kid." He chuckled. "That's a superpower, Laura." He turned left where I usually go straight. We crossed the river. It was the long way home, but it was also the less crowded way, and his shoulders looked like someone who'd had enough of red lights for one day. I didn't mind. On the seat between us, my purse hummed with unread messages. I knew what they were: my sister sending an update on Mom's referral, the clinic reminding me to make the call I'd been avoiding, the past due notice disguised as friendly reminder. I pressed my palms together to keep from fidgeting. "I noticed you've been leaving right at 5 lately," he said. His tone wasn't judgment. It was observation, gentle as a nurse taking a pulse. My mom's physical therapy switched days. I tried to make it sound casual. "Bus schedule's not friendly after 6. He nodded. Understood. There's a special tension that settles in a car when a conversation could fork toward trouble. If you've ever had a boss ask, "Can we talk?" you know it. The cabin felt smaller for a second. My mind ran through possibilities. Budget cuts, schedule changes, the new software I hadn't had time to learn because I was learning to read Medicare letters instead. The road straightened. The air wasn't quite warm enough for the windows not to fog a little. "I want to tell you a story," he said, and the way he said story made me breathe a little easier, because stories usually belong to humans, not policies. When my dad got sick, it was fast. He went from walking the dog to couldn't make it to the mailbox without stopping. I was running the second shift back then. I thought being reliable meant never asking for anything. You can guess how that turned out. He paused to change lanes. The turn signal clicked in that metronome way that makes every thought feel counted. "I missed things," he continued. "Not just appointments. Moments. The kind you don't get back. We muddled through, my sisters and me, but afterward I promised myself, if I was ever in a position to give someone a better option, I would." The truck's tires hummed over the bridge joints. I watched the water coil under us like muscle. There are conversations where your heart walks ahead to meet the words. Mine had started down the shoulder already. "We're restructuring the customer ops team," he said. "You've probably heard rumors." I had, and none of them were bedtime stories. My grip on my purse strap tightened. "I've heard things." He took the next exit, the one that curves beneath a stand of tall pines where the sky shows up in narrow, faithful strips. "Two things can be true at once," he said. "Yes, we're tightening. And yes, we're investing. I'm piloting a new hybrid role, someone who understands the client side and the day-to-day chaos in the warehouse. Someone who can stop problems before they become emergencies." "Sounds like 3 jobs," I said, trying to manage a smile. He laughed. "You're not wrong. It's a lot, but it's also a step up. Title change. Salary bump. And this matters, a flexible schedule. I don't mean the fake kind that makes you apologize for every dentist appointment. I mean control. If you need to start at 6 and leave at 2, fine. If you need to work from home 3 afternoons a week, fine. You said it, we support it, and we revisit every month. No penalty box." The truck was quiet enough to hear the heater breathe. My throat went dry in a sudden, unreasonable way, as if I had swallowed a pocket of air, and it lodged there just to make a point. I looked over at him, but he was focused on the road, giving me the dignity of not staring. He went on. "There's also a company Explorer we rotate for site visits," he said. "It sits idle half the time. If commuting is the thing that's making all of this harder, you can sign it out as needed. No hoops. Bring it back with gas." I hadn't noticed my hands had crept into each other, fingertip pressed to fingertip like I was keeping a secret warm. The idea of not racing the bus schedule, of not counting stops like beads on a rosary, that alone felt like someone had taken a backpack off me. But he wasn't done. "And we have a hardship fund," he said. "Small, but real. People don't ask because they assume it's for someone worse off. That's pride. I've got the paperwork in my briefcase. If medical bills are part of why evenings feel like a cliff, and I suspect they are, let us help with a piece. You've carried us on ugly days, Laura. Let us carry something back." I didn't say anything for a long second. I didn't trust the shape of my voice. You know that feeling when gratitude and disbelief collide, and the result is a kind of gentle panic? That was me, counting the raindrops fringing the side window as if they were proof the world was still happening. I don't know what to say. I managed, and immediately hated how small the sentence sounded. "Say you'll think about it," he said. "Say you'll let me show you the plan on Monday and ask every hard question you've got. You don't owe me a yes tonight." The road opened, the lanes loosened. We were passing the grocery store that smells like warm bread until you remember it's a machine. My neighborhood sign appeared, the paint flaking in a way that would be charming if it were a movie. He flicked the signal, calm as before, and I could feel my chest doing that uneven thing it does when you cry in a disciplined way, quiet, methodical, like you're assembling something instead of falling apart. "I thought you were going to tell me I was on the short list," I said, and then laughed at myself, a messy sound that admitted more than it wanted to. "You're on a different list," he answered. "The one I keep of people I don't want to lose." It's strange how recognition lands. It's not loud. It's a stillness that happens inside you. My tears were not dramatic. They snuck out and sat on my face, surprised to be there, like guests who arrived early and don't know where to put their coats. I wiped them with the back of my hand and didn't apologize. At our age, you earn your right not to apologize for tears. We pulled to the curb just past my building. The porch light in my unit was on. My mother leaves it whether I'm home or not, a habit from when she believed light could dictate safety. Ryan put the truck in park, but left the engine running, a small engine heartbeat. "I want this to be a good thing," he said. "Not a clever way of getting more from you. If you ever feel it's the latter, you tell me, and we fix it. You have my word." I nodded, feeling that old reflex to promise I'd work twice as hard to make it worth it. He must have seen it cross my face, because he held up a hand, a stop sign that was more blessing than command. "You don't owe me extra," he said. "You owe yourself a life that fits the shape of your actual days." For a long beat, all I could hear was the rain softening on the hood and the ticking that engines do when they think they might rest. I took a breath that felt like it reached parts of me the day hadn't touched. The offer he'd made wasn't just a promotion or a perk. It was a kind of respect that had a door on it and my name on the key. "I'll think about it," I said. "And thank you for seeing me." He nodded once, satisfied, the way a carpenter does when a frame sits level. "Monday," he said. "And if you need the Explorer tomorrow, text me. No heroics." I gathered my purse, thumbed a message back to my sister, "On my way," and reached for the door handle. The night air came in light and clean, smelling faintly of wet asphalt and the old magnolia 2 buildings over. I stepped down, looked back at him, and found myself smiling the kind of smile that has relief folded into it. "Drive safe," I said. "You too," he answered, and tapped the steering wheel in that little rhythm people do when they're ending a moment with grace. I climbed the stairs slower than usual. The hallway hummed with someone's television, a laugh track whose jokes were for a different life. Inside my apartment, the living room lamp made a warm circle on the thrift store rug. My mother called from the couch, asking if I wanted tea. I told her maybe later and went to the window. The truck's taillights floated at the corner, paused, and then disappeared, 2 rubies swallowed by the night. I stood there longer than I meant to, holding the day by its edges so it wouldn't slip away too fast. There was still dinner to make, a voicemail to replay, a calendar to rearrange. But under all that, a new room had opened in my chest. It had a chair and a door, and a view of a road I hadn't known was mine. If you're listening from a city where the buses are late and the rent is early, you know the miracle of an offer that sounds like time. You also know the fear that comes with it. What if I fail? What if it's a trick? What if I'm not built for the kindness I'm being given? I'm not silly enough to think one conversation fixes a life, but I do know the difference between being managed and being trusted. Tonight, driving under the wet shine of streetlights, I was trusted. I poured 2 mugs of tea, brought one to my mother, and sat with mine cooling in my palms. The steam made my eyes sting again in that good way, the way you feel when your lungs remember they can fill all the way up. Monday felt close enough to touch and far enough to prepare for. I left my phone on the table, screen down, like a promise to be a person before I became a function, and I let the rain finish the day for me. There's more to tell. What I learned about why Ryan chose me, what I decided when the weekend stretched out like a test, and how an offer becomes a life, because it's one thing to cry in a truck and another to walk into a different version of yourself without looking back. But that is for next time. Tonight is just the drive and the moment a door opened in the rain, and the steady, unexpected quiet that followed. The weekend after Ryan's offer felt strangely long, like time had been stretched just to test me. I tried to distract myself with chores, but everything seemed to circle back to that conversation in his truck. Fold-in towels, I thought about his words. Paying bills, I thought about the flexible schedule. Washing dishes, I thought about the Explorer parked in the company lot, sitting there as if waiting for me to claim a piece of freedom. It wasn't just about work anymore. It was about my whole life. For years, I'd been moving like someone walking against the wind, slow, deliberate, never quite fast enough to feel ahead. And suddenly someone had turned the wind around, offering to push me forward instead of holding me back. But with that gift came fear. What if I failed? What if I couldn't live up to the role? What if I let him down, or worse, myself? Sunday evening, as my mother settled into her chair with a blanket and a book, she looked over at me. "You're pacing again," she said gently. I laughed and sank onto the couch. "I'm just thinking." About what? I hesitated, then gave her part of the truth. Work. They might want me to take on something new, bigger. Her eyebrows lifted, the lines around her eyes deepening in surprise. "And what's stopping you?" I opened my mouth, then shut it. I didn't know how to explain that it wasn't just about me. It was about her, about time, about bills, about energy. "I guess I don't want to get in over my head." She reached over, her hand cool and steady on mine. "Laura, you've been in over your head for years. And you've managed. Maybe this time you won't be drowning. You'll be swimming." That stayed with me. By Monday morning, I walked into the office with a different kind of nervousness. Not dread, something closer to anticipation. The usual rhythm of the day was unchanged. Printers jammed, phones rang, coworkers grumbled about the weather. But to me, everything felt lighter, as if I was carrying a secret that the walls didn't yet know. Ryan was at his desk when I passed by, looking over reports. He glanced up and gave me that small, grounding nod he was so good at, not a demand, just acknowledgement. It steadied me. At noon, I knocked on his office door. He waved me in, the desk already covered with papers. He had printed everything. The role description, the schedule proposal, even the hardship fund form. He laid them out carefully, explaining each point. I asked questions, some I didn't even know I'd been holding. What if the clients need me outside of my adjusted hours? What if the warehouse staff push back? What if I can't keep up? He answered everyone without a trace of impatience. Then we adapt. Then I back you up. Then we train others so you're not alone. His calmness wasn't rehearsed. It was conviction. When he slid the hardship fund paper toward me, I froze. My eyes lingered on the header, "Company support INSATV." For a second, the words blurred. My throat tightened. He must have noticed because he softened his voice. This isn't charity, Laura. It's a safety net we should all have. If you need it, take it. If not, just know it's here. I nodded but didn't pick it up. Not yet. Just knowing it was an option felt like breathing room I hadn't had in years. Finally, he tapped the pen beside the role description. This one, though, that's yours if you want it. I stared at the paper, my hands trembling slightly. Signing it felt like crossing a line between who I had been and who I could be. I thought of my mother's words. Maybe this time you'll be swimming. And I picked up the pen. My signature looked ordinary, like every other time I'd signed something. But to me, it was a declaration. I was choosing possibility over fear. Ryan smiled. Not big, not dramatic, just steady. Good. Now the real work begins. The rest of the day went on as usual, but I wasn't the same. Emails still came in, phones still rang, but I felt a thread of strength running through me. For years, survival had been my only skill. Now, for the first time, I felt like I was allowed to hope for more. That evening, Ryan offered me a ride again. I accepted. The rain had cleared, leaving the streets damp and shining, the air sharp with the scent of wet leaves. We drove mostly in silence, but it wasn't heavy. It was comfortable, like we both understood that some things don't need words. As he pulled up in front of my building, I turned to him. I don't know where this will take me, I said, but I promise I'll honor it. He nodded once, his eyes steady. That's all I ask. Inside, I found my mother dozing in her chair, the television murmuring in the background. I set my purse down and went to the window. Outside, Ryan's truck lingered at the stop sign for a moment before turning out of sight. I stood there, watching the empty street, and felt something inside me settle. The fear wasn't gone, but it had shifted. It was no longer the fear of drowning. It was the fear of learning to swim in deeper water. And that, I realized, was a fear I could live with. The days that followed were full of small changes. I started adjusting my schedule, experimenting with earlier mornings and shorter afternoons. I began training staff to handle calls that usually landed on my desk. I asked for help, something I had avoided for years. And every time I doubted myself, I remembered Ryan's words in that truck. You don't owe me extra. You owe yourself a life that fits the shape of your actual days. For the first time in a long time, I believed it.